I think you have to fill the gaps, you know, and I think there's a lot of gaps in our regulatory systems which have to be filled in order to enable us to be more productive. The global economy, I mean, there's a recession, a global recession. It affects us in Belize, right? I mean, if you're an architect, if you're practicing, if you're an architect in Spain and there's nothing happening in your country, you're going to look to export your services to some other country where you see some action. And we have noticed in Belize that we're getting a lot of architects from Europe, from the United States, from Mexico, from all over the world, who are actually bidding for local projects. And there's been a dramatic increase. Now, it would be okay if we are correspondingly able to bid on projects in Spain and Mexico and in other parts of the Caribbean, because we are equally qualified, we're equally experienced and capable of doing so. But we cannot, because there the regulatory systems are so developed that if you want to practice as an architect in Spain, you have to be registered, you have to have some amount of experience, whereas an architect from Spain can come and practice in Belize. And the regulations are there, but they're not enforced as aggressively. Right, so I think this is where, you know, we have to, the systems, the regulations have to be enforced more aggressively in Belize, and we have to have protection for the public. For example, in Belize, in terms of the construction industry, which I'm familiar with, there is no building codes in Belize that's legally applicable. And we're addressing this. The CARICOM has a quality and standards project which is ongoing, which is trying to establish that the International Building Code is applicable for the entire Caribbean. But in the meantime, you know, an architect from Spain who has been hired to do a project in Belize calls me up and says, you know, what is the code that is applicable for your country? And I say, well, legally not any. Right? And, you know, I might be, as an architect in Belize, because of my ethics, you know, want to practice at a certain level. But an architect from Spain has no such responsibility to the Belizean public. He provides his services and that's it. He washes his hands. Right? So, you know, the Belizean public then ends up with a product which, when a hurricane strikes or an earthquake strikes, is when we will see the deficiencies in that design. It might look good today, and it might look good for another 5 years, but it won't really be tested until something happens, right? So, you know, it's very, very critical that legislation is enforced, and where there is none, it's developed in order to enable the private sector, the service sector, to flourish locally. Because we are living in Belize, we pay taxes in Belize, we employ people in Belize, and the better we do, the more money we put into circulation in the local economy, and the more productive it is. And, you know, you collect more taxes as the government.
Right.
You know?
And that's something that we need to discuss when we get back, but for now, let's go to our first break.